It looks like we've got a more tropical activity in the Atlantic after a long pause, and some possibilities coming up for sure. We'll take a look at all of that. Hi, I'm meteorologist Ted Keller. We'll start with the visible satellite loop. The lower 48's over on this side of the map, of course. Florida right here. So just give it some perspective as to what we're looking at here. So this basically little swirl right here is now Gabrielle, and it's actually forecast to become probably a pretty good hurricane. But of course, the two questions are, number one, where is this hurricane headed, and what's going on back here that might be of some interest when we're still very much in the peak of hurricane season, and will be really through the early part, even the mid part of October. Here's a kind of a close-up look of Tropical Storm Gabrielle in the IR satellite. So IR is just sensing temperature and inferring height. So when you see these white and even purple colors in here, that means these thunderstorms are towering far into the atmosphere, meaning they're probably pretty strong. Let's take a look at what the tropical Atlantic forecast is. So Gabrielle is kind of taking like an S shape trajectory, it looks like. Not a very drastic S. It looks like it'll kind of curve back this way a little bit and then come back this way a little bit, and it reaches hurricane status toward the end of its trek there. Meanwhile, there are some less than 30% areas that are maybe turning into something in the wake of Gabrielle. That's still a long way out, of course. We'll take a look at the EPS. This is the European model's idea of what the probability of a tropical storm is on the 23rd. So that would be Tuesday of next week. And this is just as the storm is making the turn. That's why I picked this slide. So pretty sure that there will be something there, 60 to 70% chance right there. But you can tell by the shape of it that the probabilities are indicating that it's starting to make the turn back out to sea. So that would take the eastern seaboard off the table for Gabrielle, and that looks like that's going to stick. And you can even see that in the forecast that was issued yesterday. This is once a week where they look at week 2 and week 3. So on Tuesday that's issued. So for today, week 2 is all about where Gabrielle is going to be. They're not really talking very much at all about what happens out here. And if you'll recall, that was a very low probability. And then the week after that, which is the first week in October, we have again kind of a, not a real great chance, but it is there nevertheless. Well, you know how that goes. Sometimes you get a spin up really close in that turns into something huge. And a lot of times you get these high probabilities out here, or at least consistent probabilities that end up being nothing at all. So we're going to watch it very carefully. We, of course, have used the next name on the list. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's the seventh name storm this year. And we're just getting in now into the lower part of the range of the forecast for this Atlantic season for named storms. Still got quite a bit of a season left. We're taking a look at the visible satellite loop, and just like earlier this week, we have two big swirls in the atmosphere, very clear, one here and one here. This one is pretty uncharacteristic. It's a stalled low off the coast of the eastern seaboard. Very interesting. This one right here is maybe about right for this time of year. We get troughs of low pressure, like I'm going to show you here, that do form now getting into the mid part of September. So it's pretty easy to see where the spin's coming from. The low is right there. And so is there going to be any severe weather activity here? Now, none of these storms are really kicking up their heels too much. The ones that I hear outside my house right now, same. We'll take a look at some close-ups in a minute. There is, of course, a warm and cold front associated with that upper level low right here. The surface low itself is pretty weak. This is an occluded low, so what happens when the cold front overtakes the warm front, like you see here, you get this purple color on the front, and that's an occluded front. So that's basically meaning that this thing is, the low at the surface is directly underneath, or pretty close to being underneath, the upper level low. So it's kind of occluded, stacked out a little bit, which means it's stalled, and that's why some of the rain amounts out there are pretty good. Let's take a look at what we do have in the severe weather area, and it's not a whole lot. Well, for today, I used the visible satellite with the SPC's outlook overlaid on top of it. So Colorado Springs down to almost Amarillo, there's a slight risk of severe storms. And along that frontal boundary here, that green outline is a marginal risk. Again, you can see there are indications of a couple of storms forming in those marginal risk areas. But if we go out to Colorado to take a look at what's happening in the slight risk, the stronger storms are near Trinidad, off to the east of the interstate there in Colorado, and nothing really forming around Pueblo yet. but north of Colorado Springs, Woodland Park, a couple of thunderstorms, and you can see a smattering of warnings with those too. And not surprisingly, a severe thunderstorm watch in effect from Colorado Springs southward into northeastern New Mexico and small little pieces of Texas, Oklahoma. Most of the heavy rain is kind of behaving itself. There's a lot of stuff off the coast of Florida, and some of that may creep into the eastern shores there of Florida. It's really kind of close to call there, but if it did, these would be 4 to 6 inch totals. If it did, as it is, there's even some coastal areas of eastern Florida that will receive probably 2 to 3 inches of rain over the next 5 days. That's what this chart adds up. And clearly you see this frontal zone here, and the backlash of the low around it is kicking up some rainfall there. We'll take a closer look at that. Here is the next 5 days. So just north of Minneapolis, St. Paul, we exceed the 3-inch mark. And many areas of central Minnesota are in the, let's say, almost 2 to just over 3-inch tally for that period. And this is the next 5 days. So that'd be through Sunday. And then if we look at early next week, there's also a heavy rain hazard that shows up around the Dallas area on the 22nd. That would be on Monday. So that's something to watch out for as well. The general trend, though, for Tuesday through Saturday of next week, so that's right after that map I just showed you, is for the northern plains to dry out, the Pacific Northwest to get a little wet, and parts of the southern Mississippi Valley and Texas, maybe a slightly higher confidence level that those areas will be wet during that time period too. So let's take a look at temperatures. This is interesting. So we have this kind of sine wave pattern. So it's hot, cold, hot, which is completely dictated by the upper level pattern. So remember you had that upper level low right here. That's it. That's what's causing it. Clouds, rain, and cooler air, a little bit of cooler air coming in behind it will restrict highs on Thursday in the Dakotas to only the 60s. Meanwhile, it'll be 93 in St. Louis tomorrow and 84 in Chicago. So, and also for the season, pretty hot in northern Maine, close to 80 there. Again, the colors indicate how far above normal you are, not the actual readings. So this is what is considered a little bit abnormally warm, and this is what's considered a little abnormally cool for this time of year. So here's Saturday. Much of the country recovers and becomes at least average, if not a little bit above normal. So we're looking at places like Louisville and Evansville, 91 degrees in both of those cities. Cooling off in my hometown a little bit, back only into the mid-80s. Kansas City only 80. The northern part of Maine and much of New England staying cool, as is parts of the Southwest, but otherwise still a pretty warm pattern for the bulk of the country, which only really gets emphasized even more on Monday, but still pretty high above normal temperatures in the Great Lakes, parts of the plains, Ohio, and Mississippi River Valley is getting pretty warm for the, last couple of weeks of September now. Here's the 6 to 10 day forecast Tuesday through Saturday of next week, and it is a high confidence of pretty hot weather in the Dakotas and in Montana, and much of the country with a pretty favorable confidence level that readings will be above normal through that 6 to 10 day period. Now, I've showed you a lot of hot weather. I showed you some patches of cool, but it is kind of exciting to finally be able to put a map like this up as we get toward the end of the season. This is the risk of heavy snow. Now, this is the 26th through the 29th of next week, so that would be, what would that be, Friday? So a week from this Friday. So it's a long way out. So something's going to have to happen, and indeed the pattern is going to reverse itself a little bit to allow these snows, mostly in the higher elevations, but still a threat, nevertheless, a slight risk, taking us out to the end of the month. It's a map I haven't used in a while, since probably back in March, but hey, maybe some snows are in the future for the end of September for parts of the northern Rockies. Thanks for watching this edition of Weather to Watch. It comes out every other day, or as the weather necessitates. Please remember to share this with your friends, subscribe to the channel, or at the very least, like what you just watched. Thanks.